if you're getting ready to prepare your book cover, you're going to want to start looking at fonts that you might want to use. When I'm making book covers, I'll usually make the art first, and I'll just try a lot of different fonts to see what really fits. But you can get started by looking for what kind of fonts you want to use. And so I've actually put together a PDF. You'll find it in the course, which has some not common fonts, but some fonts that I like that I have installed on my computer for different genres. So for romance, you're going to want something probably that's more decorative, usually a script font, something kind of like this. There's lots of these, so you can find one that's not on this list. In this, I just use the name of the font in the font, so that if you like this one, you could search for Satisfy font and you would find it and download it. These are my favorite, simple and sans serif. You want to usually use a sans serif font for the small text or the author name, or else a simple serif font. These are sci-fi fonts, simple serif. So you could choose one of these. Usually you want your author name and the subtitle or the small text or any reviews to be really simple. You don't really want them to be decorative. They can be, these are all a tiny bit unique. They all have a little bit of a different style. So you can pick one that's a tiny bit stylish, but you don't want one with a lot of flourishes or extra decoration for the author name. For the title, you can have something that's more decorative and that fits the genre, and that's actually pretty important. So for a thriller, you're going to want a big, bold, possibly dirty font so that people can look at the cover and know that it's a thriller. Same for fantasy, or for horror, or for paranormal romance. Especially paranormal romance, readers really love decorative fonts and typography. And for Western, the thing about fonts, when you are starting out, you're going to need to install some fonts on your computer. Your computer already came with some fonts pre-installed, but they're pretty basic, and you really shouldn't use like Times New Roman for your book cover, or even for the formatting. You're going to want to choose better fonts. Some fonts you can get for free, some of them you may have to pay for. So I'll show you a few sites that I use to get fonts. A common one is DaFont. It's got a lot of free stuff. You want to make sure you check what license each font has before you use it. But even here, you can look for fancy, techno, foreign look. If you're looking for something really specific, a medieval Gothic text, you'll find a whole bunch. So you can find some things that might work. Like this one's pretty awesome, so I can download it. And once I download it, it'll ask me to install it on my computer. Once it's installed on my computer, it'll show up in all of the programs that we're going to be using later. So now I can open this zip folder and click on this TTF file, and it'll ask me to install. And then it'll be installed. So that if I go to Photoshop or Word or whatever, this font will just be one of the options that's on my system. There's one of the tools I'm going to be showing you how to use later is an online graphics tool, so you can't add your own fonts to online tools like that. But if you're using Photoshop or another program that's on your computer, you can just go through and add fonts like this. So these are some free fonts. I'll look for some more, maybe, and you can also just search for something. Maybe I'm looking for Western fonts specifically, or sci-fi fonts. I can search for keywords and it'll show me some things. Or techno will probably work better. So here's some things that could work for sci-fi. That one's kind of cool. This one's neat. So I'm going to download that one. And some of these, even though they're given away for free, they may have limitations for using it for products or things that you're selling. So you'd actually want to check, probably inside the zip folder they have this commercial usage. So it says in here, free for personal use. For commercial use, you must purchase a font license. So then I would have to go to here and find out how much that font is to use for commercial use. And that's going to be true in most cases for these free fonts. And you probably wouldn't get in trouble using it, but it's not a good idea. And fonts are usually, less than $50 for commercial use even. So it's a good idea to just find out what the limitations are. Sometimes it'll just be free. Usually, they put it out for free, but they wouldn't mind earning some money. If you're going to use it for commercial to sell some books and you're going to make a profit, it's nice to reward the artist who designed the font and to give them, $20 or $50, whatever they're asking for. It's not a big deal. For more professional fonts, I also use my fonts a lot, which has more professional fonts that are usually more expensive, but also more unique and distinctive. So for me, it's worth, if I really need something, and some of these are pretty expensive, but like this is a really great neon font, I might really need it for a project. And it only costs $16, which isn't actually that bad. And I might use it sometime. So I could add it to my cart, or I could just favorite it for now. I haven't used this site for a while. I don't remember how to favorite things. There's a bunch of options. I just saw another one that I liked. I'll go to Hot New Fonts. So like here's one for $20. This one's $5. A lot of these are cheap, but some of them can be a lot more expensive. I think it's well worth, if you find a font that's going to work for your cover, it's well worth paying the $35, up to $50. The font's really going to do a lot for your cover. This is a really nice, simple one. Oh, I think I can just add it to my nice list of fonts so I can come back and find it later. If you hire a professional designer, then they would pay for these fonts. And when you're buying a book cover from a designer, they're giving you the final files that are ready to use. So they're not giving you the fonts to use for commercial purposes. So that's why, like, if you hired me for a cover, then I would buy these fonts, and then you wouldn't have to worry about this stuff, about buying a license. But if you're doing your own cover, you're going to want to go through and find some of these fonts that really work. And even like something like this that's clean and simple, but just a little bit unique and interesting. You want to be careful about using something that's too decorative or crazy, because if it's really distinctive, like there was a really cool font that came out a few years ago that was Bleeding Cowboys. I'll look it up so you can see. So this is a Bleeding Cowboys font. It's a great font. It's really cool, but so many self-publishing authors used it for their book covers that it was everywhere and became quickly overused. And now it looks kind of crappy on book covers just because it looks amateurish, just because it's been around and so many people have been using it for substandard covers. So once you've found these and you've downloaded them, you could also pick some out. If you're working with a cover designer, you could pick some out that you like. It'll save a lot of time. On the other hand, a good cover designer is going to recommend good fonts that are going to work. And you may be attracted to some fonts that really aren't a great idea to use for your book cover design. There's another one that's Font Squirrel that you can use to get some free or professional fonts. And you can search by category, you can search by keyword. And you can also just Google, you can go up into Google and search for something like best Western fonts. And here's 75 free Western fonts from 1001fonts.com, which is another site you can use. And there's just a bunch of these. So it's the same thing. You could download it, or you could buy a license for professional use. You would probably want to download the free version first and make samples and play around with it. And then if you're really sure you're going to use it for the final book cover design that you're going to have for sale, then you can go back and get the license later once you've decided on it. But for now, you just download anything you think might work out or anything that you kind of like and install them all in your system so that we can play around with them when we're making samples and you can see what's going to work the best. But you definitely want to get some professional fonts that aren't the ones that came installed on your computer, because that's a rookie mistake. You've got to learn how to download and install your own fonts to your system. There's some nice Western fonts I haven't seen, so I'm going to grab some of these. But that's basically it. I'll show you more about fonts and font styles in later lessons. For now, just spend some time and download some that may work for you. Two more places you can find fonts that work sometimes. This is creativemarket.com. It's a newer site and it's got really cool fonts. They're a little more artistic, so they work more for designer stuff. There's stuff that works really well for Chicklet or web design stuff. I mean, these are really nice fonts. They won't work for all kinds of book covers because they're kind of too stylish. But for some book covers, if you find the right font, I mean, some of these are pretty awesome. It's an $89 font, but it looks great. I'll probably buy it actually to use for some book covers. You don't want to, it's a kind of, these ones you can't really get for free, so you want to be pretty sure you're going to use it before you buy it. And like I said about Bleeding Cowboys, it's kind of risky to get something that's so fancy. But on the other hand, if it suits your project, it can make a really amazing cover just by having a really good font. I mean, one really good title font and then simple fonts for the rest of the text can make a really awesome cover. So be willing to spend some money getting the right font for your project. I think I'll buy a few of these right now, actually. The other place is Etsy. Etsy is for handmade stuff, but increasingly designers have been using it to sell things as well. So you can actually look for some fonts and find them. Sometimes these are kind of embroidery stuff. Here's one. So it's about $20, and this actually looks like it's the same font that's being sold on Creative Market. It's probably a lot of the same designers, but you can also look for special fonts on Etsy, and you might find something that works well. Sometimes they just have they might have something like a print material, like they've got a note card. But if you don't know what font they're using and you really want that font, like this is a custom wedding invitation, maybe you really like this font, you can usually buy the invitation and ask them what the fonts are, and for $10 or $15 they'll just tell you where to get the fonts.